Going on? Tremaine, Mr. Hard Pivot, and I am back in your screen once again, guys. Hey, and I'm gonna look up a little bit here, guys, so everybody else knows I'm out here sharing with my family up here, my Instagram family. So I'm going live on Instagram and the camera just above this camera, guys. So if I look up a little bit, not going crazy here. But what's going on, family? How y'all doing today? Hope y'all had a great day, great weekend. Hope God is and the Most High is blessing you guys in all ways, financially and spiritually as well. Just want to jump on today because I received an email from a buddy of mine who says, you talk all things mindset, message and money, but he said you never talked about bankruptcy before. Well, let me start off by saying, of course, I am not a bankruptcy attorney. I'm not a licensed CPA, a licensed tax agent, or any of that. However, I am a financial educator, a financial literacy educator. I constantly learn from some of the best mentors and coaches in this country. One of my closest mentors is one of the top 3% income earners in the country. And he's just a financial education and literacy, just a guru with applying the things that he's learned over the course of the last 30 years to everyday life, right? Pulling out the everyday problems that are keeping us financially poor and create solutions, right? So with knowledge is power. And you guys know, if you follow me to any degree, that I believe acquired knowledge and shared knowledge is power, right? Just having knowledge and keeping it to yourself and hoarding it selfishly and not sharing it and putting it back into the universe so that energy can come around and create synergy with others, to me is a waste, right? So with that being said, guys, again, as you see, it's bankruptcy, recession, and cash flow. So the email said that to talk about bankruptcy. So again, I'm not a bankruptcy attorney, but what I did do is that he didn't know that there was more than one type of bankruptcy. So I just did a little quick research, right? And what I found was, excuse me, guys, what I found was that in 2005, that the legislation was kind of changed on bankruptcy. And the short version of that is that it was changed to make it harder for the everyday person to file bankruptcy. Um, and the reason that's significant is if you didn't notice, you should know it now. Then you can always do your own research, and I always advise you to do your own research. Uh, Bankruptcy is actually a tool that the wealthy people use. Wealthy people use bankruptcy as a strategic tool, right? And you can do your own research to find out how, or I may do a live later on down about it, just specifically about how the wealthy use bankruptcy as a strategic tool. All right, but in 2005, the legislation was changed to make it harder for the average everyday person to file bankruptcy. And for those that don't know, there's two types of bankruptcy, right? So you have the Chapter 7 bankruptcy, and then you have the Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Now, what bankruptcy it's essentially a way to get out of hard financial times when you do not have the money to pay off your debt or debts, right, to your debtors. So if over the span of 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you've collected and created debt from credit cards, from houses, cars, just loans, student loans, just all kinds of debt. And you're at a point in your life, things have happened, whether it was societal, whether it was a recession, or whether you just, down on your luck, don't have a job, lost the money, you can't pay this stuff back. So you essentially are telling the government, I would like to be freed of all my debt, cleared of all my debt to basically start over. Now, this is the most common form. Chapter 7 is the most common form, right, of debt relief that is sought out in this country. The thing about it is, now it will completely erase your debt if you kind of you got to go through now because of 2005, especially when I said that they want to make it a lot harder for the person to get Chapter 7. Because of that, all debt that's qualifying, that you have to qualify, your debt has to qualify to get erased, right? So you're going through this process. Now, So it's a serious thing, right? This is nothing that you go through happenstance, because there are some consequences to it as well. This is just not, oh, they free your debt up, you clear, you get to start over. So they know that some people actually, utilize this in the wrong manner as well. So that's why 2005 Act was created. All right. So now you do get a new financial start over, right? You do that, but once this process is started and you're going through this process of chapter 7, and say you go through it and they do in fact clear your debt and stuff like that, this stays on your record for 7 to 10 years, right? Saying that you went to chapter 7. And what that does, when new creditors go to look up, what's going on with your credit and what's going on with your history, you're viewed as irresponsible. You are viewed as an irresponsible borrower still, right? And you are then considered and put in this high risk category. Now that's what chapter 7. So there's a pros and cons to it. That's why it's a serious thing that you to consider before even considering it, if you get what I'm saying, right? So now chapter 7, on the other hand, chapter 13, excuse me, chapter 13, on the other hand, is it's less harmful to your credit, right? It's still filing and asking for debt to be eliminated and forgiven, right? So all these different debtors that you've created over the years, and you will still have marks against you, right? There'll still be marks against you, but in the sense that it's not as bad, because repayment plans will be made. So that means, like, they won't take all of your assets. Like in some cases, they can take your assets that you own, a vintage car or home that's pretty much paid off, or a boat that you may own, motorcycle or something. They can take these things from you, liquidate them to pay your debtors back. They can force you to do that. But in chapter 13, you're able to kind of, and the process is, when you're in the process, you're able to take some of these assets, like your home, so to speak. They won't take certain assets and they won't liquidate them to pay your debtors back. So in that sense, you work out a repayment plan still, but now you're on a repayment plan. And now, so you get to keep some of your assets, and then you get to take some of those debts, and some of those debts will be eliminated, right? Now, again, 2005, it's called the Bankruptcy Abuse Prevention Consumer Protection Act. Bankruptcy Abuse Prevention Consumer Protection Act. Right, 6 letters. And in 2000, so you can look that up yourself. The 2005 Bankruptcy uh, Abuse Prevention Consumer Protection Act. And because with some of the things that I'm saying, there are a lot more changes that were made. And remember, I said they made those changes to make it harder for the everyday person to start filing this Chapter 7 uh, uh, bankruptcy. So there are a lot of different caveats that they changed to make it harder. Like if you have X amount of money coming in, no matter what. 'Cause some people still were bringing in a lot of money and filing bankruptcy, right? So if you have X amount of money, then you fall into this threshold of bankruptcy, and then you have to do a test, like because some people, they said, were abusing the system, so they'll rack up a bunch of debt and then file bankruptcy. So there's this thing they put in there called the presumption of abuse. So now they look at, like, really dig into it, put the microscope on your actions, your intentions with your debt that was created, right? So like some people will rack up $100,000 in debt one week and then file the next week. They look at that as a presumption of abuse of the system. So now the debtors are able to look at that a lot closer before they allow you to file bankruptcy. The waiting period between filings changed in this 2005 Act, right? So I'm assuming that you file bankruptcy 1 year, and then maybe a few years later, people were filing either another Chapter 7 or Chapter 13. It was a lot of filing going on. So the 2005 Act at that point put stipulations on the time frames between filing bankruptcies and which type of bankruptcies you can file, how close and how far away from each other. So again, the 2005 Bankruptcy Act, you can look at all these specifics. And they had now in 2005, they also said while you're going through bankruptcy, you have to go through classes now. a debtor education class, right? A credit counseling classes and courses. So now, where it was just filing, letting the paperwork do what it does, you're getting cleared. Some people didn't care about the 7 to 10 years of bankruptcy being on their record, but now they said, okay, you have to go through a real process now. So outside of your life, where you have children, you're working, you have a business, or you're trying to get back on your feet, they're saying if this bankruptcy is serious to you, this is something that you necessarily really need, on top of just filing, now you're going to make way for some classes throughout the week. You're going to credit counseling classes. If your house was involved, right, or if there were liens on your properties, now you're going to some type of homeowners class, or real estate class. They were putting all these stipulations in. That's what in 2005. So a lot of stipulations were created in this 2005 Act, and it was all created to deter people from filing Chapter 7, right? So now, my thing is this, guys, talking about bankruptcy, and I said I got the reason I'm talking about this is an email that I received, and the person didn't even know that there were more than one type of bankruptcy. Now, my thing is this: financial acumen, right? Financial education, financial literacy it doesn't matter how much money a person has. It doesn't matter how much money a person is uh, making, monthly, annually. If your financial literacy and your financial acumen, if your mindset is not right, it doesn't matter how much money you're making. There are a lot of people out here with big cars, big houses, fancy things, and they're essentially money poor. They're essentially poor, right? But they have the bling, they have the watches, they have the cars, they have the motorcycles, they have the boats. But because they don't have that financial balance, right? They're always behind. They're essentially in the rat race, but they just look better. So education, guys. I know a lot of people talk about education. There's a lot of free education. There's a lot of free literacy. There are a lot of channels like mine. The world has shrunk so much because of the internet, right? The World Wide Web. And a lot of people don't take advantage of that education until it's too late. A lot of people don't prepare for the storm. They don't prepare for war in times of peace. A lot of people don't gear up to fight a battle until the battle was already on their front doorstep. And that's the crux of understanding and getting financial education. How does that tie into bankruptcy? How does that tie into recession? How does that tie into cash flow? Well, bankruptcy, of course, can happen, and you can file bankruptcy for a lot of reasons. Like, things happen in people's lives that they have no control over, and I get that. And a lot of us get that. The courts get that, right? So there are some things where people are filing bankruptcy because of, they basically shot themselves in the toe. And some people are intentionally doing things to create debt to try to play the system, and they understand all of that. But in times like this, in the last couple of years, right, um, a recession is happening, and it may get worse. Inflation is happening, and hyperinflation seems like if it's not already here, is around the doorstep, right? So that put people in positions to where in the next 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, more people may be filing bankruptcy, but not to no fault of their own, right? Because there was an economic crash, and is an economic crash. But in the midst of that, there are some people that can avoid that by getting some understanding and some financial education, by understanding the four pretty much essential roadblocks that not only leads you from getting to your financial goals, but essentially prevents you from getting to your financial goals. You have to understand these roadblocks to overcome these obstacles, right? You can't overcome an obstacle. You can't jump over an obstacle if you don't understand or see what that obstacle is. So for those that are in line to maybe file bankruptcy in the next few years, then you have to understand that right now, cash flow, understanding how to increase your cash flow is crucial right now, right? To avoid the bankruptcy, right? No matter what the economy is doing, right? The wealthy really don't care what the economy is doing because they know how to outpace inflation. They understand strategies to outpace inflation. They understand the rules of capitalism. They understand the rules of, uh, of interest, right? Compound interest, right? Either you understand the rule of compound interest. What does that say? Either you're going to pay compound interest if you don't understand the rule of compound interest, or you can gain from it if you understand the rules of compound interest. So all these things tie together. So right now, no matter where you are financially, no matter where you're sitting in your financial life, right now is the time to understand how to increase your cash flow. This is the time to understand how to increase your cash flow. This is the time to truly understand what financial roadblocks are preventing you from getting to the next level of wealth, to secure your family, to secure your home, to secure a legacy for your generations behind you, for your children and your grandchildren. Now is the time to understand cash flow. Now is the time to understand a few rules, right? So a few strategies. So that bankruptcy won't be in your future, right? So that the next time you hear or see the word recession, it won't affect you as much, right? The next time gas goes to $5 to $10, it won't affect you as much because you've learned strategies to outpace inflation. See, a lot of us get taught over the first 16 to 18 years of our lives in school that you can outwork inflation. What's the answer to inflation? What's the answer to price going up for everything? For school prices going up, for gas going up, for food going up, for daycare going up, for haircare going up. Our What we get taught is to say, let's outwork it. Let's get another job. Go get a part-time job. But the thing about inflation in this country, guys, you're still going to get taxed. So if you get two jobs, if you get three jobs, the government doesn't see you working two or three jobs. They just see two or three people. So you still get taxed at about 33%, sometimes 40% per each job. So you can't outwork inflation, but you can outthink it. You can outsmart it. You have to outpace it. All right, guys. So hey, for those that were thinking on the verge of bankruptcy, if you haven't filed, if you haven't thought about it right, if you haven't got to the point of really doing it and pulling the trigger on that right now, I tell you what, just set back, text inquiries to 216-285-0569. And let me send you just a few things that can show you and help you learn some strategies to outpace this here. Okay, guys? So listen, bankruptcy, recession, and cash flow, they can all go together, right? Because one is going to top the next. So with that being said, guys, I hope everybody's having a great day. If you have not liked and subscribed to the channel and shared and all that other good stuff, please do. And as usual and as always, I'll end with this. I don't know you, but I believe in you. So why don't you? Until next time, guys.